Okay, well, let's talk about the big solo. And you've got many decisions to make here as well. We have talked previously about the tonguing patterns that you needed to decide. But now in the solo itself, you're going to need to decide how to play the grace note. And this is not as easy a decision as you would think. Let's talk about 3 ways, at least the 3 ways I've been able to figure out that you can play this piece. Most of my career, and this includes my time in Hong Kong and other times I'm just practicing this excerpt, I have played this in a way, let's call the purist method. That is, that I tongue every written 16th. I don't give any slurs in this except I slur the grace note to its main note. I slur the D4 to the C4, the little grace note on the downbeat of, well, I guess it's the 3rd measure of that solo. And I would do that by placing that grace note on the beat. I think that's probably the way the strings do it when they're playing tutti together, although, you know, it just, you know, at that speed it's really hard to hear, but I'm pretty sure probably with their bowing technique and things like that, you know, they're not going to alter their bowing technique. They're going to go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth with that ba 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 ba, and so they're going to slip in the note. So it's going to be on the beat. See that? It's going to be right there on the beat. So you're going to maintain the same tonguing pattern. And so that's the way I did it for many, many years. I would do my mixed tonguing or combination tonguing through the whole pattern. When I get to the grace note then, I place the grace note on the beat and the note following it, the C4, as quickly as possible and then go on to that. It was successful for me. It worked many times. But recently, I've heard about some different things and I've been out of the loop, but there are many other bassoonists, John Miller, among others, Phil Kolker, there's others that mention this way of adding a slur. Slurring not only the grace note to a 16, but also slurring another 16th in that grouping. And that's really intrigued me. Well, one way to do that is to keep the purest approach, that is putting the grace note on the beat and then slurring the C4 and the B4 together. So you've got all of those slurred. So you're slurring them all together. I'll do that again. I didn't do it well. So really you can think of the grace note and the C following it as being 2 30-seconds. Like that. And that's one way I think a lot of people have used and been effective. However, one way I'm enjoying practicing, and which I've actually did in the excerpt I played for you earlier, placing the grace note before the beat. And this means then I slur from the B flat before that beat, the B flat 3 up to the D and the C4. I really like that. First off, it's got this sort of jazzy feel to it with your tonguing pattern. You know, it's sort of got a feel to the tonguing pattern there that's really, really sort of nice. You know, which is sort of nice. So it's, and then there's that interesting clarity I find with hooking those 2 notes right around the C natural. And in addition, we have got this thematic thing going. And the tonguing method that I use here preserves that theme, that thematic little rhythmic figure or intervallic figure that is, by keeping it on the beat. We've got, and then the next measure. It's not obscured because then the grace note comes before it, emphasizing that figure. So I really like that. Maybe you're convinced, maybe you're not. But anyhow, see what you like with that. Now, in terms of practicing this, this is going to create a dilemma for you. You must choose one of these methods. I suppose the advantage to the purist, tonguing everything, and the second method of slurring the grace note, the C, and the B together is that the placement of the grace note is exactly the same in all the patterns. And so there's a reinforcement between those where you can practice those two together and then decide which one you're going to use. I guess if you go for my method and I just have been fooling around with it, then you just sort of have to break the pattern and just realize that that grace note is going to be before the beat, and there's a different timing issue for that. Now, let's talk about practicing the tonguing pattern with the extra slur in. Now, if you're practicing the purist way, you can just practice the same tonguing method that I talked about earlier in the 2D section, and you just keep increasing the metronome speeds. However, if you're doing the other tonguing pattern, I suggest you do some practice of that tonguing pattern by itself. For instance, I might do this. Practice it with my combination tonguing on just a single note so that I can work on just the tonguing. You know, just working on the tonguing like that. And I might practice it actually with multiple methods. That's not a bad idea. Practice it with the single tongue, staccatissimo. Of course, I'm holding down the whisper key. Choose other notes too when you practice that. Let's do some legatissimo on a G. Oh, sorry. You know, very, very legato single tonguing. You can practice your double tonguing, things like that. The hard thing that I found is when I get my multiple tonguing working, my combination tonguing working, it's hard to just stop it and then restart it. So in addition to practicing the whole tonguing pattern by itself, I will practice certain tonguing groups. For instance, the restart of the tonguing pattern where the B natural comes in. I start with a K syllable. See, it's that place there. So you might try all your tonguing patterns. Then I also practice taking the beat before that and going through the slurred note. So I didn't do well. So I'm practicing my tonguing pattern, ta-ka-ta-ta, ta-ka-ta-ta, ka-ta-ta-ta, ta-ta-ta-ta, ka-ta-ta-ta, ta-ka-ta-ta, ka-ta-ta-ta. So I'm practicing that pattern there over and over again, taking small sections of this solo and working through them. I find that's a very helpful practice technique, is to break it up into the areas that you're having difficulty with and practice in little things and then loop them together. It's called, say, concatenation, where you're taking the sections and putting them together and then creating your solo and practicing it. Hope that's been helpful.